The vehicle segment is a peculiar trope that is highly emblematic of the era in which Kingdom Hearts was originally released. Boot up just about any game with a significant budget from around the turn of the millennium, and odds were that at some point, you were going to have to set aside everything you knew about the game's controls to come to grips with whatever setting-appropriate locomotion had struck the developer's fancy that day. I've already talked at length on this channel about the Sly Cooper series fixation on this sort of thing, but no one was safe, nothing was sacred. Out of pure morbid curiosity, I tried to trace this trend back through the most prominent games of the time. Crash Bandicoot was probably the first notable instance of this trope in a 3D game with the rideable hog, but that in itself feels more like a direct adaptation of Rambi from the Donkey Kong Country games. DKC's developer Rareware has a history of this sort of thing that goes back to the original Battletoads. 2 years before that, Mario Land occasionally shouldered the platformer gameplay out of the way so you could play a horizontal shooter, and the idea for that most likely came from Kid Icarus, released in 1986. I think games like Blaster Master and Speed Rumbler deserve honorable mentions for featuring both ground and vehicle gameplay, but that was more so the entire point of those games as opposed to the one-off gimmicky segments I'm referring to. Which makes sense. Prior to the 80s, it would have been seen as simply impractical to dedicate those kinds of developmental and processing resources to a single level when there were only like 4 anyway. But Kid Icarus was actually beaten to the punch here by just 9 days by, of all things, Takeshi's Challenge, the infamously inscrutable side-scrolling beat-em-up life sim hybrid about a salaryman who leaves his wife and kids to hunt for buried treasure. For as bizarre of a game as it was really ambitious from a mechanical standpoint, boasting a highly populated kind of open world with tons of activities and minigames. It was sort of like a prototypical Yakuza game if not for how unfair and obtuse it was. And if this was indeed the birthplace of the vehicle segment, I find that appealing in its own way. It'd be like if you could trace cinematic set-piece escape sequences back to I Wanna Be the Guy. But once again, this matters to Kingdom Hearts' legacy because its quirky spaceship segments aren't some one-off gimmick or side mode. They're used as a vehicle, to contextualize the way you travel to disjointed levels, as opposed to selecting your next objective from a menu or world map or jumping through portals. Now, if you're familiar with this game, you may be wondering why I'm bringing this up in front of the one world we don't need to fly to, and that's because, though we won't be piloting our gummy ship, the Acre Woods is entirely in the spirit of one of those vehicular interludes. Rather, I'd say it's probably designed to be several interludes, and not for the first time on this channel do I almost regret the order I've chosen to do things because, in terms of pacing, I think saving this world until we can clear it all in one sweep does it a bit of a disservice. We've been gathering the torn pages of this old book throughout the entire second act of the game, and for each one we grabbed, we unlocked one of the areas in this bookish realm. Checking in with this book between each of those worlds, and taking a peaceful break from all the heartless evisceration before setting out for another go was almost certainly what the developers had in mind, but taking it all on at once has its advantages too. Before we dive in, it seems only reasonable I recap where we found each of the book's components. Sid was given its tattered remains by Merlin, and after restoring it as best he could, we returned it to the old wizard. We then found a page within Agrabah's Cave of Wonders, swallowed among one of Monstro's many chambers, in a chest in Ariel's grotto, on the doctor's bookshelf in Halloween Town, and one was a gift from the Dalmatians for recovering 50 puppies. I love this because each of those locations already offers an explanation for how they might have gotten there. This book was probably a part of a world that got destroyed, if not one of those worlds unto itself. So each page is somewhere lost treasures have simply wound up. The Cave of Wonders is the only one I kind of have to reach for, but when considering both the context of this universe and the legendary basis of the cave itself, it's a location where Jinn gathered and hid all the treasures they could find. So if one of those found this page and thought it was valuable, of course it would end up there. Meanwhile, Dr. Finkelstein collects any texts he can get his tiny little hands on. If a book on Heartless wound up there, he's clearly good at finding such otherworldly literature. Monstro swallows everything, Ariel gathers anything from other worlds, and the Dalmatians were scattered to the 4 quantum winds in the same way the pages must have been. I love all the thought that must have gone into this. The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh is the only animated movie from Disney's Bronze or Dark Age to get a full world in any Kingdom Hearts game to date. In fact, it's the only Bronze or Dark Age film to a lot of things. Tons of character meetings and rides in the parks, sequels, live-action revivals starring Ewan McGregor, and if you had any childhood at all, good old Winifred T. Pooh Bear was all but certainly a part of it. So why? Why was Sword and the Stone lucky to get so much as a character through the door? Why was the Jungle Book world cut from Birth by Sleep while the Acre Woods appeared and reappeared in every numbered title? You know, the normal numbers, anyway. The film had a disjointed, episodic plot stitched together by expository narration. It was animated on the cheap, going so far as to draw over entire animations from Dumbo. And yet, there was always something magically innocent about watching Pooh and Friends. Even today, rewatching this movie for this project, it makes me feel like a little kid again. utterly charmed by how few bothers he gives, so it's easy to feel quite taken in by the way the story was translated into Kingdom Hearts. The way we run around on the book's pages is directly inspired by the film's playful relationship with the fourth wall, and it takes the opportunity to recreate the illustrations so faithfully. Even better is the way the environments and skyboxes are built. This is just one of those things you don't see much of anymore. Developers leaning into the limitations of the technology to make creative decisions that lend themselves even better to the style than the most graphically fidelic renderings could do. Obviously, distant objects are 2D textures, that's just how you save space, but in the context of the story, it lends a pop-up book aesthetic that works so frickin' well. I especially love the way the skybox is fixed to Sora's position, giving this delightful parallax scrolling effect. Just such smart design.
Hi there. What's wrong?
Nothing. Just thinking.
Oh.
I was thinking of how to say goodbye to Pooh.
Pooh?
Yes?
Wait a second. You're Pooh?
Yes, I'm Winnie the Pooh. Pooh for short. Who are you?
I'm Sora.
Oh, hello, Sora. Have you come to say goodbye to Pooh, too?
Well, no. Why would I do that? We've only just met.
Because everyone's gone away.
What do you mean?
Well, we all lived here in the 100-acre wood, and we'd take walks together, or play Pooh sticks. And every day, I'd eat some honey. Just one small smackerel would taste very good right now. But now, everyone is gone. All my friends, and my favorite Hunny Tree, too. Everyone must have gone away while I was napping, I think. So, who knows? Maybe I shall end up going away somewhere as well. But I wonder, how do I say goodbye to myself? Think. Oh, my tumbly is getting rather rumbly.
I wanted to let that whole cutscene play out despite its slow, quiet nature because it sets a really interesting tone. There's something almost heartbreaking about Pooh's lack of perspective, the way a child reacts to the news that one of their friends has moved or even died. This empty meadow lives up to its name. The only thing to find here is this mithril shard in the log, so we gotta go see if we can find Pooh again. The world map has gained a save point, positioned by one of the only identifiable locations we can't visit. This is Christopher Robin's tree, whose absence from this world is a really interesting detail I'll expand upon later. Here's something only I would notice. It's completely impossible to run in a straight line down the crease at the center of this page. You can go straight up it, but Sora drifts to the side if you try to go down. And it's made me realize that this game doesn't really do sloped surfaces that often. You've got a few ramps or staircases here and there, the Cave of Wonders Guardian, and a few cases in Halloween Town, but for the vast majority of this game, you're running around on perfectly flat plains. Verticality is usually accomplished with raised but still perfectly flat platforms, and it's not hard to figure out why. The angle of a slope does not need to be particularly steep for Sora's primary Keyblade attack to get caught on the ground. If the terrain were more consistently rugged, I could imagine this becoming very frustrating very quickly. And as I've just stumbled upon, Sora's feet are not very well equipped to run along the actual polygonal seams of a surface, causing him to drift around a little bit. Pooh's house is about as faithful gets and has a few charming interactables. Of course, you can light and douse this fire with Fire and Blizzard, and you can renege this bell also. It doesn't seem to accomplish anything, though this tends to happen on the 8th ring, and after ringing it exactly 13 times, it simply won't let you anymore. You can still ring it by hitting the bell, but the interactable goes away until you reload the area. Is this the very first instance of the number 13 appearing in Kingdom Hearts? Before you head inside, you can peek through the window and spot Pooh hanging out by the table, probably taking inventory of his honey pots, cause once we go in...
Oh, bother. There's no more honey left. If only the Hunny Tree would visit. Oh, then I could eat my fill.
The 100-acre woods feels kind of like a toy. There's a ton to interact with that has all but no purpose. You can check this cuckoo clock, whose cuckoo is a tiny Pooh in a honey pot. You can open the window, which causes the curtains to flutter gently in the breeze. You can open the cupboard and find, though fresh out of honey, Pooh still keeps elixirs stocked. And if we head outside and hit the chimney, we'll cause a mega ether to fall from the ceiling. Regardless of how few or many pages you've found, you'll always get this scene from Owl right outside. telling you to go find more pages to continue the story. A strange addition that makes me wonder at the depths of Owl's knowledge, not to mention whether or not Pooh considers him a friend since he said they all went away, but I think it's safe to say this is a gentle developer insert to keep kids on the right track. Last thing I'll point out about Pooh's house for now are these 5 empty honey pots outside. Strangely enough, they will be important. No matter if we already had the pages or if we come back with them later, we don't get another animation here of a new location filling in, which feels like it may have been an oversight. Playing Spot the Difference on this page to figure out where to next doesn't strike me as the intended experience, but anyway.
What am I to do? I'm all alone. Pooh! Pooh! Where are you? It's me, Piglet.
Aww, Piglet was always my favorite of the bunch. He's just so anxious and kind, and would probably weep uncontrollably if he stepped on an empty cicada shell. And no, we're not out of the voice actor woods yet, either. Only 3 of the 100 Acre characters are voiced at all, but Piglet is the only one of them to retain his original voice actor, John Fielder, another treasure who gleefully voiced the character whenever asked, all the way up until he passed away in 2005. Piglet will cower in the bush if you try to approach him. You can just barely see him huddled up under there, but you just have to do what any good friend would do to someone with social anxiety and sneak up behind him.
Oh dear, I was just, never mind. I'm sorry.
Don't be scared. You're looking for Pooh, right?
You know Pooh. Oh, you see, I have something for him. I have to take it to Pooh right away. Oh, Pooh! Pooh!
Hello, Piglet. How have you been?
Oh, I'm so glad to see you. I thought you'd gone away. I brought what you asked for.
Thank you, Piglet. Now I can finally have some honey.
This little balloon Hunny Tree escapade is taken directly from the film, and by extension the original book, all except for Pooh disguising himself as a rain cloud, and with a touch more violence as Sora's job is to fend off the bees as Pooh ascends. Now, I should mention up front, none of what we're gonna do in this book is required to finish the game. You are free to ignore it if you have no designs on attaining 100%. However, this minigame in particular will give us an extremely helpful reward that a lot of people recommend going straight for as soon as you're done with Agrabah. In addition to that, if you're taking on a level 1 challenge, the reward for completing the whole 100 Acre Woods is indispensable. As optional as it is, you gotta at least try it, if nothing else for the sake of the music. This song is called Bounce-O-Rama, and even if these minigames sucked bee spit, I would still be having fun just bopping along to it. To be fair, you don't have to do anything here. The only necessity to get to the next page is that Pooh gets at least 1 point, and there's literally nothing you can do to prevent him from that. But as fun as standing around listening to the song for 3 minutes is, let's actually play. Now, the only real key to this minigame is that you don't need to be in any hurry to swat away the bees. They come straight to you and Sora will platform automatically after hitting them, so take it easy. The time limit is extremely generous. It essentially accounts for Pooh getting popped a few times, and if you're aiming for the best reward, your goal is to get 100 points. If you don't make that, there are 2 optional cutscenes for falling short of the mark, by at least 1 point.
Oh, that was yummy in my tummy. But there is room for a bit more.
And by at least 50 points.
Oh, bother. That didn't go too well.
There's really no trouble in getting a score over 100. Heck, even a score over 200 is basically child's play, but if you feel like taking this extremely seriously, and hey, why wouldn't you? The big points are not for letting Pooh eat his fill at the honey holes, they're for swatting the bees. This is becoming the case with increasing frequency, but I gotta shout out Nick McSlighton once again for sharing with me some very obscure mechanics I'll be showing today, including that the point bonus you get for hitting bees depends entirely on which attack you hit them with. Sora's uppercut attack, used if you hit the bees while they're above you, will give you 5 points, but hitting them with an overhead attack, or if you have the aerial sweep ability equipped, you'll get 10 points. Armed with this knowledge, we can pursue a perfect score. Now you can't reset the game from a menu, however you can just leave, so no need to wait out the 3-minute timer if you're not happy with the run. Bees will always spawn a set amount of time after you clear the last batch, so the faster you do that, the more bees will show up. So I memorized the order they spawned in, which wasn't all that complicated, especially since they all come out of the same hive once he gets high enough. The trouble was, Sora's automatic platforming from this branch was somewhat less than helpful, so the real challenge here was nailing these jumps like 20 times in a row. But with that done, I got a score of 309. I suspect 319 or even 329 might be possible if you really get a feeling for the timing of the bee spawns and delete them as soon as they show up. But I'm happy just breaking 300 points. Oh, no, I'm way off. I noticed you could hit the beehives, and while playing around with that, I found out if you hit whichever one is set to next spawn a swarm, it will pop out early. This will completely change the meta. Hitting the hives is extremely precise, since you can't lock on and they're protected by their supporting branches. I messed around with it using flight as a sort of proof of concept, and if you managed to work around Sora's weird fixed jumps, you could potentially break 400 points.
It is rather funny what I will do for honey.
With Pooh's gluttony thoroughly sated, no matter our score, we'll get the Nature Spark, another summon gem we'll have to awaken later. We can head back to Pooh's house and see a couple sweet details. A lot of honey pots in his house are no longer empty, and he's stuffed enough that he's ready for a nap. If you did get a score of at least 100, one of the empty pots outside will also be topped off. Owl's hanging out here too, and he'll have tons of contextual dialogue throughout our visit to the woods depending on which high scores we've attained. Our next stop is this adorable little vegetable garden, with carrots, pumpkins, and cabbage. We can pluck all but the carrots, and each one has an 8% chance of hiding a potion in its roots. But the real prize is the 2% chance of digging up an elixir. If you want, this is by far the lowest stakes environment to farm them in. You get 26 chances each time you leave and re-enter the map, so you're likely to get one every other harvest. Not to mention all the free potions. There are certainly worse uses of your time. There's an adorable mailbox by the door which we can check and find a letter from Pooh inside. Though I almost wonder if he got someone else to write this for him, cause I find it hard to believe he'd ever spell honey wrong. You can also take a look at the letter itself and see the name Mickey Mouse written on it. Yeah, this is just a reused texture from the beginning of the game, but I have to wonder if this was a deliberate Easter egg. It's not as though they couldn't have put whatever they wanted in this mailbox, or even if they were pressed for time and had to reuse a texture, they had plenty of paper and note-looking stuff to choose from, maybe even the envelope texture from right there. Therefore, I have to assume that Mickey Mouse has been through these parts, and this is the best hint to his whereabouts we've ever found. But since Heffadon and Woofy don't join us in the book, and since they've never actually mentioned his name, Sora just glances past it. Looks like nobody is our next 100-acre denizen to return, but that's funny. I don't remember any nobodies in the movie or the book. Yeah, Pooh, go ask nobody if they've seen Rabbit. I'll try the back door. Poor Rabbit, such a doormat that the only way he can think to enforce his boundaries is to lie his little cottontail off. I almost don't want to point out this conspicuously hidden pot of honey in the ceiling, but alas, the story must go on. In the source material, this chapter is always the one that stuck with me. Pooh eating and eating and eating until he can no longer get out the way he came in, and has to spend days, if not weeks, stuck in the doorway and forced to fast until he slims down. Luckily, Rabbit only has one pot, so we should be safe to just leave Pooh to it. Well, so much for that. There are two versions of that little scene depending on which way we try to leave the area. Luckily, it seems this won't take weeks as long as we just give him some carrot top juice.
Hey there! Name's Tigger! T-I-double-G-R, that spells Tigger! Well now, I don't think I've ever seen you before.
Hello, Tigger. You've just bounced my new friend, Sora.
Tigger and Pooh are both voice acted by the frankly amazing Jim Cummings. While not the original voice actor for either role, he has played both characters in most of their appearances to date.
Speaking of which, my bouncing spot has gone and disappeared. So for now, this will be my new bouncing ground.
Another minigame, this time protecting Rabbit's carrots. And he's gotta be like, oh come on Owl, you didn't really need to demonstrate that, did you? Once again, the only necessity is that one carrot survives, and Tigger only has time to bounce at most 27 times in the minute allotted, where he'd need 30, and even then, he'd have to never return to a carrot he's already buried. So this is all once again guaranteed. In keeping with the Hunny Tree, there are 3 scenes we can get from that depending on our score. For letting Tigger run rampant and getting fewer than 75 points, he'll give himself a major pat on the back.
How about those bounce-a-roonies? Well, they were good even for a Tigger.
If we get upwards of 75 but less than 150...
Hey, you kept up pretty good there, Sora. Especially for a non-Tigger. Let's have another go.
And finally, if we achieve that target score of 150...
Oh, what's going on? Nobody keeps up with Tiggers. Maybe there's something wrong with my tail.
Your score is calculated by taking the number of times you blocked Tigger and multiplying it by the number of remaining carrots. Pretty simple. Owl says the best method for a high score here is to use the rush command that appears if we stand over an unstomped carrot. And yeah, that's gonna make things easiest. Just position yourself somewhere the command pops up in between every bounce and you should be able to save every carrot no problem, since it automatically zooms you over to his target. But it is not in fact the highest scoring tactic. Think about it. What does Tigger like best in the world? Bouncing.
'Cause bouncing's what Tiggers do best.
So he'll give you triple the points if you block him in mid-air, which once again puts the potential max score here way above where I once might have considered possible. We're still going to make a lot of use of the rush command, but by doing it early enough, we can jump as we reach the carrot and get triple points every time. Once again, thank you Nick for uncovering this thoroughly unnecessary hidden mechanic.
Bother. Oh, where am I? It's ever so dark in here. Well, it isn't so bad, I suppose. There is plenty of honey.
There's a new letter in Rabbit's mailbox again, this time from Tigger. Based on this, I think these letters are actually meant for Sora, but since Rabbit's got the only mailbox in town, everyone's just putting their letters in there. Actually, the little mail flag is up, which is how you indicate outgoing mail, so that checks out. A few more silly interactables: you can twang the clothesline, you can hit this pipe and make the water bucket overflow, and if you don't want to do things the polite telekinetic way, you can hit the mailbox to open it. Rabbit's chilling inside, freshly stocked on honey, his garden protected. I think he's gonna be okay. If we try to check in on Pooh, we'll find he's not actually at his house this time. But of course, Owl and the steadily filling honey pots are. There should be a second full pot if you got that score of 150 in the carrot patch. Another page, another place. The hill is certainly the prettiest locale in the woods. Just look at that water. If you've ever been curious, what these two are probably doing right now is playing Pooh Sticks, which is a game where everyone picks a stick, drops it off the upstream side of the bridge, and watches to see whose emerges from the other side first. Yeah, hold tight, Eeyore, you don't mind chillin' for a sec, right? This is one of my favorite tricks. The reflections of the riverbanks and bridge are just a fully modeled mirror of the area underneath the water's surface. A very convincing illusion as always. Eeyore won't float past a certain point, so there's no rush here. And hey, I didn't know you could leave the area via the river. If you come back, Eeyore's little journey downstream will reset, and you just have to swim up to him to pull him out. Here's my hottest take. I've never loved Eeyore. Though he's extremely easy to sympathize with, as a kid I was too young to get it, and as an adult, his constant self-deprecation and lack of self-worth falls just this side of toxic depression, which I've been on both sides of. Now listen up, Eeyores of the world, there is nothing wrong with letting people who love and care about you try to help you. It's not humble or selfless to push them away just because you don't think you're worth it. And I feel compelled to bring up that one fan theory that each denizen of the 100 Acre Woods is the embodiment of some various neurodivergencies. You've probably heard it before: Pooh is autism, Tigger is ADHD, Rabbit is OCD, Piglet is general anxiety disorder, Eeyore is depression, and Owl's incessant need to share what he knows and over-explain everything is completely normal. But since each of these is a broad spectrum of behaviors and signs, I don't think it's a very productive conversation to have. If it was intentional, I can see the merit in giving kids these characters as a way to easily broach the conversation about whether or not they might be on one of those spectrums, but I've always gotten the sense this was a coincidence, especially given the era these characters were written, where these indispositions were a lot more stigmatized. A.A. Milne would have had to be decades ahead of his time. Right, Eeyore's tail. We're supposed to head up to the hill for another minigame to find it, but you can spot it right here on top of Eeyore's house. Ironically, he built it too sturdy this time. Maybe the tail is the key to its structural integrity, so we gotta follow Owl and see what's up. We're meant to lead Pooh up there by guiding him with the lock-on feature, but if you target him from the opposite side of the river, he'll wade in and get swept away in the current, then start floating downstream with his head in another honeypot. If you get him across the bridge and then do it again, he even has a unique jumping animation for the higher bank. Just like Eeyore, he'll float until he gets stuck, and then all you have to do is swim up to him to rescue him. There are a couple more honeypots speckling the area that will distract Pooh. I think the idea is to avoid these so as not to waste time, but it's much more in the spirit of this world to let him stop and have a smack roll at each one. The top of the hill has a new minigame for us. Pooh's swing is weirdly infamous in the KH fandom, and it's because Owl's instructions are all over the place. Owl tells us we gotta push the swing before it reaches the bottom, so it's easy to assume he means like 170 degrees or 5 o'clock or whatever. But then he says, look, I'll raise my wings to indicate when to press the button, and he does that at the very back of the swing. Now most people assume they have to press the button while his wings are up, which launches Pooh not terribly far. That doesn't really matter though. In fact, this is the first of the minigames you have to get a certain score on to move on, but in an odd twist, you're required to get a low score. So hit the button kind of whenever, and he'll go right where he needs to and complete the story of this area. But the high score we're aiming for to fill that third pot at Pooh's is 40 yards. And if you want to hit that target, what you gotta do here is kind of split the difference. See, Owl's wings don't indicate the optimal timing, they indicate the window you have to press the button at all. If you do it outside that window, Sora just does this little wave. So to get as much swing as possible, you want to hit the button as late in the window as you can, which is like the instant after Owl closes his wings. I think 45 is the highest you can get here. There's no ultra hidden tech for jumping between swings or anything like that. Also a departure, there are only 2 possible results for that one. Here's a fun detail just for me. Owl can be spoken to if you cheat your way up to him, but he just uses the same dialogue he had when we were guiding Pooh up here. Our reward for that page is an upgrade to our stop spell. Now you might assume that increases the duration enemies are stopped for, but its base time is unfortunately unaffected. This has only upgraded the radius of effect, making it easier to stop groups. Still nice, but a bit confusing. I guess we're following a theme. If you come back to the area after finishing it and break Eeyore's house again by getting a low score, he'll express that he should probably build his house elsewhere. This is more than just flavor text, as if we head back to the empty meadow, which has a picture of Eeyore's house anyway, we'll find he's set up shop there. How cute.
Now break it.
What? Why?
Just break his house.
But
That'll be fun.
it's
Break his house.
but he worked so hard on it.
Would you kindly do it?
Oh god, I'm a monster. Maybe checking in on Pooh will make me feel better. No, he rebuilt his house here.
Do it.
Oh god, why? Pooh's thinking outside this chapter, and it seems he got a little chilly soaring through the air, but we can warm him up by lighting his little fire. He actually gives you a mithril to say thank you, which is above and beyond. I was already thrilled just to see him react to the fire. Only 2 pots left to fill out here, but before we move on, I have a strange compulsion to visit the Hunny Tree. What prime real estate? What an idyllic location. The soft lapping of the pond, the scent of honey on the breeze. You thought you'd be safe hiding behind Rabbit's house, but nothing could be further from the truth! There's a new letter from Pooh in Rabbit's mailbox, once again inviting us to replay our most recent minigame. Tigger's old bouncing spot is the newest addition now, and what a bouncing spot it is. It's even got a hint of some puzzle platforming to spice things up with these water spouts. We can get a mithril for experimenting around a bit, and if we're extra adventurous, we can make our way into this tree hollow up here and grab a Shield 2 gummy. I didn't realize you could walk on these leaves. I made that tougher on myself and I wouldn't have it any other way. There's also a mithril hidden in this log, which you'll only really notice if you look through it. What a delightful playground. I can see why you missed it, Tigger. He and his little buddy Roo will invite you to bounce along with them. A bit of memorization, they take away your movement abilities so you have to play on an even field, but they can't take away that which I never earned in the first place. Obviously you fail if you land anywhere they didn't, but they don't mind if you skip over platforms. I played around a bit and I figured out that each of these logs has like a cylindrical checkpoint over top of them, and you're only allowed to hit each one once. If you enter a new one, the one you just left becomes forbidden. And if you reach the goal without triggering every checkpoint, well... Oh, you can do it, Roo, come on! You'll get them next time. The other two courses don't mix things up much. I like this last one launching you up to the treetop, but judging your fall back down can be tricky due to the camera and Sora's fancy drop shadow. But the consequences for failing aren't harsh enough that I really feel the need to complain about it. Tigger's giant pot is the headliner minigame of this area, and it's a weird one. We gotta inflict 20 points of damage on this pot without falling off the stump. As you might expect, you can take until the heat death of the universe and still clear the area, but if you want to get under 30 seconds and get that precious honey pot at Pooh's, you're gonna want to know how this works. If you just stand swinging on the stump, you're gonna get 1 point at a time, maybe 2 if you hit it high on your overhead attack. Take a guess what the bouncing character will reward you for, and you should put together pretty fast that the damage the nut does depends on how high it is when you hit it, and by jumping first you can get 3 or 4 points from a swing, or 20. You get a grace period if you fall off the log after hitting the pot, so honestly it's easier than it looks. We can snag our prize from the stump it was blocking and once more move on. But first, Owl says he'll trade us stuff for the nuts growing in this area, and I'll gladly take the excuse to explore it a bit more. There are 5 nuts in the area, but bear in mind you can only hold 1 at a time, so you have to hit up Owl between each one. There's 1 on top of this water spout, 1 on these far tree branches you can platform to, or let Tigger launch you to. There are 2 up in the tree Roo can get you up to, and there's 1 more hidden above this other water spout. He'll give you a couple stat ups and some very nice synthesis materials for your efforts, then the last thing we can do here is have Roo launch us back up, and drop down to this cleverly hidden chest underneath where we found those 2 nuts. Then grab ourselves a dark matter. The chests look pretty distinctly wooden in this world. In fact, this is something super extra this game does. Unique chest textures depending on the world. Most people will notice the Halloween Town ones, because everything has a unique texture there. But though the differences in the rest of the worlds are subtle, they are there, and that is my jam. Pooh's hanging out by his window now. We can't even seem to talk to him, but we can help him enjoy the breeze. Rabbit's letter this chapter is from Roo, and now that we've cleared out the bouncing spot, it is now part of the cycle of destruction. Our final location is the Muddy Path, where we can find Pooh diligently following tracks that desperately need following. And our last little challenge is essentially a game of hide and seek, though some are hiding better than others. I love these footprints Sora leaves in the mud, such a nice little touch. We gotta start with Eeyore in this little clearing, and yeah, shame about that. Anyway, we're meant to guide Pooh around in order to draw his friends out from their spots, though we can get Rabbit, Tigger, and Owl without him. We just need him for Roo and Piglet. Roo's easy, he's right next to the clearing, but to get Pooh up to Piglet, we'll need to lure him over to these flowers so that the deep jungle butterflies can make a reappearance to float him up to the next layer. This log seems easy enough to cross, but this hole in the middle proves too great an obstacle, and Pooh can't go through it because it's blocked by a spider web. And this is neat, because you can either clear out the spider web or knock down this beehive to plug the hole. Both work. One last time, it doesn't matter how long we take, as long as we get everyone back together eventually, but our extra goal is to clear it in under 5 minutes. That's not remotely strenuous, but I took all the rest as seriously as possible, no reason to let up now. Though I said you need Pooh for Roo, there is a more violent option that, unfortunately for the little Joey, is a lot quicker. Then you should draw Pooh towards you while searching for Rabbit. You're gonna want to get Pooh to the flowers before you ride the wind up to the log because the flower cutscene always teleports Sora to ground level. Grab Tigger, then pull Pooh up onto the log before you focus on dropping the beehive. Finally, make sure you have Pooh flush Piglet out of the cave before talking to Owl, or else you'll have to climb back up. And bada bam! Comfortably over half our time left. After reuniting everyone, we'll get a cutscene that I'm gonna circle back to. In the meantime, we can take one last tour of the woods. Pooh gets the honor of the last letter in Rabbit's mailbox, and I suppose, out of desperation, Eeyore can now set up shop in the Muddy Path, but I feel like I'm doing him a favor in convincing him to move elsewhere. This is not the ideal location. I'm gonna leave it standing in the empty meadow. Given that's what's drawn on the book, and it was his first choice after the swing hill didn't work out, it feels like that's where he'd want it anyway. One more visit to Pooh's, and he's actually not doing anything different from last time, and we still can't talk to him, but we can talk to Owl. Surrounded by all 5 brimming pots of honey, he'll thank us for getting those high scores in all 5 minigames and give us the cheer ability on Sora. A valuable asset on level 1 runs, but just generally helpful for any summoning we want to do. Now, let's close the book on this chapter of our journey.
I'm so glad we're all together again. I didn't know what to do when I was all alone.
Oh, Piglet, you gotta be brave.
You weren't lonely at all?
Lonely? Are you kidding? I'm a Tigger! The most wonderful thing about Tiggers is I'm the only one. But I do admit, friends are awfully fun too.
Think, think, think.
Hey, Pooh. What are you thinking about now?
Oh, well, I'm just thinking about, what to think about.
Well, I'm off.
Sora, where are you going?
I'm gonna go look for my friends. They're waiting for me.
Bounce on back again.
I hope you find your friends.
Winnie the Pooh has always been a story about growing up, told through the lens of one major character we never saw, Christopher Robin. He's never mentioned in Kingdom Hearts because the 100 Acre Woods is a very unique world where Sora fulfills the role of one of its main characters. He gets to basically be Christopher Robin, spending the day playing and helping out his friends. But there comes a time when responsibilities call. Pooh, Tigger, Piglet, Rabbit, Eeyore, Owl, and Roo all stand as reminders that, though we inevitably have to leave behind our childhood, it never leaves us.
Sora, don't forget, we shall always be here. If you'd like to visit again, that is.
It will continue to shape us wherever we go. And what I love most about this chapter is that Sora knows this, inherently, instinctively he understands, no matter how pressing his cosmic quest, there's no such thing as the wrong time to make new friends, to build more positive memories that will hold him in good stead when the going gets rough. This is the key difference between him and Riku. Riku's mature focus on the goal at hand, find Kairi, do whatever it takes, blinds him to these merits Sora is so aware of. That's what really makes Kingdom Hearts such a great story. It's not in spite of all the Disney detours, it's because each one builds on this idea, the value of being a kid while you still can. Before we close out, let's resurrect that nature spark we grabbed early on. We can now summon Bambi, the Prince of the Forest, and quite possibly the best summon in the game. Bambi has no attacks and does no damage, instead he prances around the battlefield scattering an exorbitant amount of MP spheres, enough to fuel an entire odyssey of thunderstorms. The amount of MP he drops on each prance depends on your max MP. If you only have 4, he'll drop 20 at a time, 5 or 6 and he'll drop 85, and for having at least 7 bars, he'll shower you with 150 at a time. That's 5 charges per prance. That on its own would make him my favorite, but you may also notice this charge meter he's got by his icon. Every time you defeat an enemy, you'll partially fill this bar, and I believe the amount is the same regardless of what you defeat. Each time it fills up, Bambi will spontaneously gift you with an item or 4. What those items are depends on how many times you filled the bar this summon session, and, believe it or not, which world you're in. Here's the whole delicious chart. Now, you'd have to find a location in each world with a lot of enemy spawns, but this is a great way to get a bunch of extra synthesis materials and healing items. If I weren't recording, I would probably use Bambi in every single encounter. We stan this Ruminant King. Now, arguably, this isn't Bambi's only representation in Kingdom Hearts. I have to say arguably because I have no clue why this would be a reference, but the Gummy Ship's main motif bears a strong resemblance to Little April Shower from Bambi's movie. I guess gummy blocks fall from the sky in meteor showers? I don't know, but that concludes the 100 Acre Woods. In a game so beloved for its most epic moments, the feeling of triumph when you finally beat Riku for the first time, the music swelling as you face down threats tens to hundreds of times your size, the minigame world, tucked in the corner of this little hut in the town's basement, doesn't get a lot of glory. People don't remember Kingdom Hearts because of the time they got to stop Tigger from bouncing on some carrots, and there was once a time where I thought of this book as nothing more than a detour, an inconvenient cul-de-sac on the path to completing this game. But there's something so earnest about it. Like the game is urging you both overtly and subtly to take a break. Just give yourself a moment to breathe. Tensions are rising, more and more worlds are at stake, and the challenges you face are ever mounting, but it's okay to give yourself time. And I find it loops back to some of our longest running themes most elegantly. Throughout our journey, we have seen so many authority figures abusing their power, lording it over us, and here we have the first world where no such authority figure exists. Sora is the de facto leader, the biggest, the strongest, maybe not the oldest, but when faced with the likes of Tigger, easily the most mature. And he uses this position to make sure all his new friends are okay. that they're together and in a position where he can feel comfortable leaving them on their own. Though physically he looks down on all of them, he never once makes them feel small, and that is truly the mark of a great leader. So, lead on, Sora. You're more capable now than ever. And where we're off to next is essentially the beginning of the end, the first chapter in this game's final act. If you want to see that video right now, it's on my Patreon linked in the description below. Everyone who supports me there gets to see all my videos in early access and trembles beneath the weight of my heftiest gratitude. Like a Miri the Grey, for whom nothing is impossible. They once tried doing nothing and the results were catastrophic. Raven, who bathes in magma and is doing wonders for his skin. Raisin Bran, who can guess any password on his 10th try. It's just a shame most logins lock him out before then. RPG Grenade, who took both the blue pill and the red pill, and now he is infinitely aware of how unaware he is. Rockington can find any video on YouTube by typing in its URL with perfect accuracy. Alex, Seeker of Shine Sprites, can jump the distance between any two buildings. That's pretty cool in New York, but downright mind-blowing in Greenland. Grim Degree is the one they measured to decide what body temperature was. Chug solved world hunger once, but it turns out most people tend to get hungry again, so he's working on it. Meryl Hainsworth has an orthochromatic memory, meaning if you have a photographic memory, you can link up with her and actually develop those bad boys. Strangebird, who can pull a bank heist of any scale as long as she only takes the coins. Steve has a heart of gold, and I'm told it's fine once you get past the whole body rejecting foreign materials thing. And Sea Salt Trio, who wouldn't hurt a fly. He has decimated the entire population of Ecclestusian parasites, but that was for the good of the planet. It's different. More obsessive shoutouts to Busy Town, Chris Braydell, Doc Crimson, Eric Lee, Fundeldor, Jay Wibbs, Kane Lowwind, Kinori-san, Pagagallo, Quoth, Red Panda King, Remus, Sato DeSable, Sean Flowers, Scar Million, Tabriz Sadiq, 10-Beat, Undead Crisis, Zere, and the rest of you bouncy, trouncy, flouncy, pouncy, fun friends. The most wonderful thing about these videos is you all, and I will see you in the next one.